But I think the thing that is funny now, because I'm seeing like posts all over the internet and friends are calling me and a lot of people are trying these different tools that are now like, oh, AI kind of went crazy on me or it didn't do what I thought it would do, is kind of no different than what we've seen over the past couple of years of like you give something to ChatGPT and it kind of answers a little wrong, or you give something to Claude and it kind of answers wrong. But when you're asking a question, you're able to kind of like correct it in real time. You don't notice the wrongness in the same way. Hey, welcome to Founder Mode.
Hey, Kevin. It's funny. This is kind of, I hit the record button. You were doing something else. And, suddenly now here we are back in the studio doing the thing. No agenda. This first time ever. We don't know what we're going to talk about. It's kind of fun.
No, I have a bunch of things. I always like to start with like, what's the trickiest thing you've had to solve in the last week?
Ooh, that's good. It's kind of like Elon's text to
No, Elon's is different. Elon's is like, what did you get done this week? Yeah. I actually gave you a softer question.
Yeah.
I didn't ask what you achieved. I said the trickiest thing you had to solve.
I don't want to talk about what I've achieved. I'm not proud of it. But it's Monday, so I think it's good. We're recording this on a Monday. So yeah, the thing I had to solve this week, you know full well what it is. And it's funny because I live in a household where I am the non-technical person. And then my good friend Kevin is technical and my wife is technical. And so at all times I'm hearing about how dumb I am, basically, because I can't figure out technical things. But I will say, to your credit, you're much kinder than my wife is about the things that I can't figure out. And so the challenge of the past week was, we're all wrestling with these new agentic kind of operating systems, right? You've got Perplexity Computer just launched. People are using Cowork and Claude Code to do things. You've got the OpenClaw people. I'm not going to disclose which of those things I'm in because I don't want to create new vectors for infiltration into my system. But I'll just say that I'm using one of these AI chief of staff, agentic kind of frameworks, and I'm having a really hard time getting it to work the way I want to. And so that's been the biggest challenge and also the biggest opportunity. Like, I'll just frame it the right way, which is like, I got to do some learning. I got to learn a little bit more about what's happening at the command line and what the code is doing when it's, what the instructions are telling the computer to do, so I can get to a place where I can use it. And I'm fortunate to have here with me today my fractional harness engineer, Kevin Henrikson. Kevin, what was the hard thing that you were working on this week?
This harness engineering, as they call it, or harness, whatever, is this idea that like we're all used to using chatbots and you ask it a question, it does something. And I think the newer frameworks all have two things. One is this sort of like overarching sort of long-term memory, long-running memory. Yeah. And then I think the other is this combination of like, scheduling or kind of triggers, right? And so it's like things that can happen and start. So events and triggers, or if you just think of it simply as scheduling, because the thing just wakes up on some periodic basis and can do work. It's like, I've sent my kid to the store to go get me milk and they brought back orange juice. You're like, like that just feels way more broken when like you had this mental model of like you were going to get milk and then you got orange juice. And like, if you just were at the store with them, and you said, get milk and orange juice, you're like, oh, that's simple. Just go and like, just swap them. But if they've already like went to the store, bought it, checked out, came all the way home, and then like you open the fridge and it's wrong, like it feels way worse.
Yes.
Like, and I think that's the best way that I've thought like to sort of explain it to kind of people that aren't in the notion of like why it feels so much worse that AI got it wrong. And then if you add the next layer, which is like what we're doing at the company, where we're trying to, essentially sell AI or sell this idea, it's even more painful, or you're in your role where you're like selling things that have applied AI to a business problem, and then that doesn't come out perfect or the way that you each kind of anticipated it.
It's still being evaluated as if a human was doing it.
Yeah. And it's like, actually worse. No, the bar's actually held higher because when a human does it, like, again, it's back to the kid. Like if my kid gets
you're not going
the food wrong, you're like, oh, I get it. They're still learning. But if you tell a computer to do something, or you tell AI
to do it. It's this idea of deterministic versus non-deterministic.
And you're assigning it like a higher level of consistency because you're like, oh, this computer's definitely going to get it right. Computers just do things, it's 1 or 0.
I see all these, benchmarks. Oh, it's PhD level this. It can complete the MCATs and the LSATs, and it's like smarter than the average human. And when it fails to get the milk and buys orange juice instead, and there's the distinction of like, what model are you using? Is it the latest? Is it the smartest? Did it do a lot of thinking? Did it do it really quick? Like there's so much nuance there, and it becomes very difficult for a layperson like me to use the tools to their maximum potential because of this like idea of, harness engineering, whatever you want to call it, is like picking the right model to do the task, and setting up the system and orchestration and architecture is actually more important than the just like, hey, go do the thing.
And part of this is guardrails, part of this is defining like how to check results, but I think it doesn't solve like the problems that you and I are describing, where it's like you've asked it to do a like more complex workflow, or you've asked it to wake up on some recurring task.
Like I'm
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah. But I do think that's the next version of this, or next kind of like whatever frontier of this, is to like, how can we make it so that they can self-correct? How can it be easier for people to detect that it's going the wrong way? So yeah, you don't end up with the wrong sort of beverage in your fridge after you've sort of ran to the store and already paid for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it connects really well with the last time we did one of these episodes where it was just you and I, and we're talking about AI agents as the new employees, right? And the question becomes, as a founder, like, are you an early adopter, and do you start playing with all these tools where you have like your AI chief of staff and it is imperfect, but you're willing to put in the work to kind of fix it when it breaks and deal with the kind of early adopter challenges? And like then on the kind of late adopter, late to the party, like when does it go mainstream? When can anybody use it? When is it ready for
Yeah.
neophytes like me? I think that those are some of the questions I'm thinking about.
Yeah. And I think the best way that, again, I keep using this as an analogy is like, have you had an intern before? Have you hired a junior assistant before? And you need to keep reframing that, and you set the expectations correctly. Cause I think that's where people get into trouble, is they're like, oh, I've hired this new AI employee and I expect it to be perfect, or I expect that it to not make mistakes, or I expect that I've already corrected it once, it won't make that mistake again. And we know that humans do that all the time. Like, you can give the same requirements, please show up for work on time, please do this task. And like that can be a reoccurring kind of wrongness. And I think AI is no different, partly because it is this sort of indeterministic sort of like, the environment can be exactly the same, the request can be exactly the same, but it can actually give you different results for both good and bad reasons. And so, yeah, I think it's a cool thing. I think to me, it's just like this sea of opportunity, because I see like the potential for it, and I see when it works well. And again, I run into people, not just like you, but lots of other people that are trying to use this and also see the potential, but are struggling to sort of connect the dots. And to me, that's like, well, there's businesses in there, there's things to go be solved. And it's like, just, are you doing that in a domain that's interesting? And I think the other thing that, to switch topics a little bit, that I know I've fallen into trap-wise, is this notion of like the dopamine loop of seeing it do things and not being able to stop working on it, right? Like somebody described this as a video game where you're constantly
Yeah,
leveling up, and
you're
you're like, I
leveling
keep
up.
getting
Yeah.
more gold, more resources. Like, I can't stop playing. And there
Yeah.
is a version of that where I've caught myself many a times, like one more prompt, one more tweak, it will
Yeah.
just get there. And then,
It's a bit like a drug.
yeah. And I'm 4 hours
Yeah.
past my quote unquote, hard bedtime. Yeah. I think the thing that and I mean, to me, it's funny. My co-founder JJ sent me a document this morning. It was like an 8-page document that he wrote. And I was like, oh, did AI write this? And he's like, no, I wrote some of it, and, obviously used AI to clean it up and things like that. And the first thing I did was I dump it into AI, and I'm like, go read this. And he's like, dude, you didn't read it. Like, you're not even thinking. And I'm like, I think that's a fair critique, that I'm definitely not thinking. I don't think first. Like, I sort of like, can AI short circuit, like getting my frame around what is this 8-page document? What am I going to learn? What should I be kind of mindset should I be in as I go to read it in detail? And I think it's changed the way I work for sure. And the way I think it is harder to go in and just read an 8-page document straight up, or just read an article in the newsletter, or write a
Yeah,
walk.
I mean, I have a similar story from this past weekend. It was on like I think, I don't remember if it was on Friday or when it was. I think it might have been late Friday evening. There was, somebody on my team, I'm interacting with them, and there was like an issue that I wanted to resolve quickly. And I sent an email that I had AI help me write, asking for time to chat about a topic that was important. And then they replied, and it was clearly an AI generated reply. And then I gave their reply, like back and forth. And like, I didn't do any of the writing. Like, I told AI what I wanted to have happen. Like, hey, I need this meeting. Here's why. Here's the thing I'm working on. And I, like you, I'm like, hey, I'm working this weekend. So can we get on a call this weekend to talk about it? And sent the follow up and didn't get a response. And then Monday morning hits. I'm getting a meeting invite now for Tuesday. So it's like, it's fine. That's when that person's available. I'm not That's not the issue. It's just the AI talking to the AI and the AI reading the documents, the AI doing all the things. When does the human insert itself into the loop? I think is another really interesting conversation. And in the context of these AI chief of staff systems, right now it's so early that it feels like the human needs to be very involved.
So I think
Yeah.
the human in the loop thing, and again, part of this is like, again, it's the new employee thing, man. It's like, go do this thing, let's review it together. Go do this thing, let's review
Yeah.
it together. That's just a way better way of thinking and prompting versus saying,
Right.
hey, go do this thing. And I'm assuming you're going to understand all the nuances and not going to make
Yeah.
mistakes. Like today, I had a weird internet thing. I'm actually running on my cell phone right now. And I had kicked off an agent and it drafted an email and came back and said, oh, by the way, I couldn't connect to any of the systems you asked me to go connect to, but here's the summary of what I think I would have seen. And I was like,
Boy.
do you want me to send the email? And I was
But
like,
at least it checked with you and didn't just send the
well,
email.
I have it set up so that I never sends
So
anything
it
and it
doesn't
only
do
does
that. Yeah,
drafts
it
and it
doesn't
actually
go rogue.
can't send. And so like, but the fact was it was kind of funny because in its world, send is basically let me copy the draft and consider it done. But the cool thing here is like, it actually was very, very wrong, right? Because it's like, no, dude, like the task is useless if you're not, the whole task was to go look at the system and review it. But the fact that, my internet was down or weird on my computer, it couldn't do
Yeah.
the task. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the hallucinations are real and they're kind of persistent across various surfaces. I think that as you were talking, it just made me realize that like if November 2022 and ChatGPT was like really the phase one for most people
Yeah.
in terms of AI exposure, this next phase is about, you don't have to sit there in front of the chat interface and wait for the response. Like what we're really talking about is like now there are agents, AI agents that go and do things and they come back later with something for you.
Yeah.
Could it be good or bad? I don't know. It depends. It depends how you've set things up and what you're using, but you don't have to sit there. Yeah, and so that's like it feels like there's a progression here. And then, what comes after the like agent that can go off and do things? Like when do the guardrails get further removed and the agent is allowed to send that email for you, Kevin, because you trust implicitly that it's never going to go and pretend it did the research, hope that it's right and send the email.
Yeah, I think it's no different than like what's the task that it's kind of been given to do, and then how much are you trusting it, right? So there's obviously computers today that land airplanes, auto land, right? And those have a number of checks and balances that have been well tested, and people have like agreed that and there's
It's safe
still a
enough.
human monitoring it, right? And they have the ability to monitor it in a way. And so I think, there's different cases there. But I do think that like the AI stuff's going to go through a similar transition. There's going to be things where you're like, hey, it's fine to go like troll through this data or do discovery and send an email to my internal team. And then you're seeing it today.
So I'm just thinking about like last thing to chat about before we wrap up.
Yeah.
All of this stuff, we're kind of dancing around what does the future look like? I had another conversation right before this that I think it would be good to surface with you, which is, and we talked about this before, and maybe it's not for founders, but it's more for like everybody else. Like if you're not willing to like play with all these tools and try to figure stuff out, what do you do 5-10 years from now? Like, for example, and maybe that's the wrong question, but like the answer I gave to somebody that asked me that question a moment ago was like, it used to be you tell like a kid who's thinking about college, go get a computer science degree, go become a developer. Like that doesn't seem like good advice anymore. Or maybe there's an edit to it, like become an AI engineer. I'm not sure what that means anymore, but I'd love to get your take on this because my answer was like, go learn a trade, like be a tradesperson. Like there's still going to need to be people to maintain all the robots and machines and like when whatever form they take, like it's like I have a plumber coming over tomorrow and like I got somebody working on my, like there's stuff that's just never going to go away entirely because there's not going to be the plumbing bot that can do everything. And so like, or at least not for a very long time. So what's your take on like the way that the nature of work diverges?
Yeah. So I do think there's this thing where it's like, are you going to be building the robots or are you going to be having the robots tell you what to do? Like we've heard
It's
that
my favorite Kevin line. I used it in that conversation.
I think then there's do you want to do things, that don't scale, right? In-person clinicians, in-person, kind of local services. I think the other vector that's entertaining is like live entertainment. Like it's things that are IRL, like hosting events and like doing entertainment, going to live Broadway shows, going to live comedy shows. Like there's going to be this resurgence of things that are like human and authentically human. So I think those are some interesting things if you're more of a creative type or you're into that sort of like vibe. I think there's some interesting opportunities there. Again, it's part of like where you are in life, right? Like, I think if you're sort of past the working age or you're deep into your job, like, the the area under the curve of like potential work left to do might impact how you think about this. If you're like a new college grad, we posted this job for one of our companies. We got 2,166 kind of applications. Of those, 1,000 were qualified, meaning that they had the skills, the location, and the right to work in the US. And then of those, we sent out about half of them got, we sort of like invited them to sort of participate in the interview process, which was started with a project. And then of that, about 10% responded. And completed the sort of like task. And then of that, we probably interviewed another 10% of those. So 6 to 8 people. So you think of like the funnel from like 2,000 people. And again, the 2,000 number probably includes AI bots. But by the time we got to the 400 and definitely the 50 that sort of submitted it, they were very uniquely human, or human was deeply participating in the loop of the interview process. But all that goes to say is that like the demand for this kind of work and the people that want to go do it is like grown faster than I ever would have imagined.
Yeah.
Like this is 10x what we got. Literally a year ago, we posted a similar job, got 200 applications. This year we got 2,000. And so I think that part changes my view, at least of how I think about where people are going to go with what they want to do. I think on the other side of it.
So would that be your advice to like teenager looking at colleges and what they're going to go do is like, it's that?
No, I think it's even more meta than that. It's be able to find things to go work on where you can work on a team, find a solution. Because really it's just like problem definition.
First principle stuff.
Super first principles, iterative experimentation. And then can you have a human to human conversation about it? Because like we opened up some of the videos and it was very, very hard to understand people, right? They weren't great at communicating. It wasn't even like a English. It
wasn't that they couldn't do the work. It was that they couldn't communicate about the work.
Because it was like literally send me a 5-minute video describing what you built. That was the prompt.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great test because communicating not only to your future bosses, but to the AI is critical. Like if you're a bad communicator, you can't tell the AI what to do.
If you can't tell me what you built, you can't tell a team member or somebody else. And so I think those are like,
that's a problem.
And
was that mostly
like
language barrier stuff, or was that just like even setting aside like maybe English wasn't the first language? It was beyond that.
It was beyond. No, like this was not an English as a first language issue. It was way more about like,
these were all English speaking.
Intelligently walk me through a GitHub project that you built.
They couldn't do it.
And so there's two pieces there. One, either you didn't build it or you didn't understand what you built because it was built by AI, or you don't have a way of, putting together enough thoughts to like walk me through your architecture. Hey, Jason, how did you wash your car? Well, I got the bucket. Like there's a literal way of going to describe those kind of things that multiple ways to get there. But like the fact that somebody couldn't describe what they had done, that's a yellow flag, probably edging on red flag for where we are today. Like you're still going to have to talk to humans in our jobs.
Evan, that was fun. I like it when it's just us riffing, no agenda, no guests, just two guys trying to figure out AI before it figures us out. All right, Kevin, what were your top 5?
Yeah. AI agents feel way more broken than chatbots when they get things wrong because, you see the mistake, the task is already done or it's kind of already shipped. I mean, number 2, the right mental model is really like, think of this as a new junior employee. Number 3, I mean, people going deep on AI are really working more, not less, self-included. So number 4, the dopamine loop's real and, just treat it like a video game. You can't stop playing. But again, you do need to start a hard stop, maybe put some screen time on. And then in a world of AI generated everything, communication skills are quite frankly the ultimate differentiator. You've got to be able to explain what you built and what you didn't build.
Yeah. Number 5 hits hard. 2,000 applicants and most couldn't walk through their GitHub project. That's crazy.
Yeah. Just talk to humans. It's still a job.
Yeah. If this episode got you thinking about how you're using AI or how you're not, share it with a founder or a friend who's trying to figure that out too.
And if you haven't already, subscribe to Founder Mode. We're going to start doing more of these solo episodes alongside our interviews. So leave us a review. It helps new listeners find us. That's it for today. Because the future isn't about what AI can do for you. It's about whether you can explain what you did together.